And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to be giving some grades for the for the NBA draft and the draft picks from 1 through 14. So I'm just going to be talking a little bit about, my opinions on their game. I watched a lot of highlights. I watched a lot of the entirety of games over the weekend. And, here we have a list of, or well, not really a list, but, my grades for all of these players and how they performed. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have a picture for every single one of these players because, again, if I were to pull up a picture for every single one of them, we're going to be here forever. But I do have for the top 5 because I feel like the top 5 are definitely the most important picks in the entirety of the draft. Those are going to be the ones that are most remembered aside from Bronny James, but we're not going to be talking about Bronny because he wasn't in the top 15 or in the top 14 for that matter, right? So we will go ahead and first off, I want to say this draft class has been rather underwhelming. The only news and the only information that we've really heard about from this draft class is about Bronny. It's literally only about Bronny. Literally every other pick has barely been talked about. So it's really difficult. It was really difficult to make this list where I can get no information from outside sources and, other opinions like that. But I was able to watch the games. I was able to do all of that. And so here we have it. Now, Zachary Rasacher, probably literally the least talked about number 1 pick in the entire NBA draft in the history of drafts, aside from Paolo Banchero. Him and Paolo never get talked about by the media. I don't know what it is. They barely get talked about. And because of that, their bad performances also barely get talked about, specifically Zach's bad performances. Now, I just want to say that these grades, they might be a little bit harsh, but they're mainly harsh because everyone on the internet was so quick to talk down about Bronny and so quick to call him a bust and so quick to say that he wasn't going to be anything better than, 4 points per game scorer. There was Jaylen Brown that allegedly said that he wasn't going to be a star player or a pro player. Allegedly he said, I don't think he's a pro, right? So this is going to be incredibly harsh because the rest of these players, they are ranked, they were picked so much higher than Bronny, and yet some of them aren't even playing nearly as good as him. So this is going to be harsh, especially with this one right here. So he only played 2 games, so this is partly why I didn't want to really do this, because 2 games is not a good enough sample size for me. But in those 2 games, he finished 11 for 27 from the field. That is awful. That is really, really bad. As the number 1 pick in the draft, that is bad. No way around it. And again, I understand it's summer league, it's early, but it doesn't matter because everyone was so quick to jump on Bronny, so I'm so quick to jump on this guy. He is getting a C- grade. I don't like his performance. I genuinely think that the Hawks messed up on this pick, but in the beginning. However, the second pick in the draft wasn't much better either. And more on Zach. Again, his performance, it wasn't really all that. But then again, the reason why he doesn't get any lower of a grade is because that I feel like he's going to benefit from playing with Trae Young, right? His overall talent is incredibly underwhelming, but when he's surrounded by a player like Trae Young, I think he's going to be rather good. Now, here we have Alexander Sarr. Now, this one is going to be rather ruthless because Sarr was horrible in his first game. He went 0 for 15 in his first game. He did not impact the game at all aside from getting rebounds. He only made 1 shot in his last 2 games. So he's getting a D-, and he's lucky that it's not an F. And the only reason why it's not an F is because it's Summer League. That is literally the only reason why he is not getting an F. Because I like to give players the benefit of the doubt sometimes, but this man was awful. And being a lottery pick, Like, again, I could be being a little too harsh. I understand that. But being a lottery pick and being worse than Bronny when Bronny was getting crucified for not being able to shoot and do this and do that, it's unacceptable. Like, the overreactions, yes, they are very common, and we've seen a player play really well in the Summer League that end up being bad in the NBA, and we see it vice versa. But this is just off the Summer League, so for now, he is getting a D- grade because, boo, he was not it. Now, the only good news that he has is that his defense was rather good. Like, his defense was all right, but, being 7 foot, I expect your defense to be all right. Really, you're not a number 2 pick in the draft just because your defense is fantastic. Like, it has to be some ridiculous Hall of Fame level defense that no one has ever seen before to be picked at the second overall just because of defense, right? Now, that's really the only good positive part about his game that I've seen. So now we will go ahead and go into arguably one of the best pickups in the entire draft, Reed Sheppard. Now, when I was watching him play and I was watching the highlights and I was watching the rest of like the whole entirety of the games, he is fantastic. He's averaging 20 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in 4 games in the Summer League. He is balling out of his mind. Now, he's arguably been the best rookie in this entire class in the Summer League. Now, he was statistically the best 3-point shooter in his draft class, and although the numbers from Vegas, they aren't really that great. I mean, 5 for 18 from 3 in 4 games, not entirely impressive. It's like, again, you give these players time to translate it into the NBA. Like, because, it's still Summer League. That's one thing that I will give every player the benefit of the doubt. Now, on top of that, the fact that, his 3-point shot isn't there, what is there is his defense. He's recorded 11 steals in 4 games, meaning that in every single game, he's getting about 3 steals or 2 steals in a game, which is great. Like, I mean, for a 3-point shooter, having the defense and being able to turn stops into offensive possessions and fast breaks is incredibly valuable. And I'm really curious exactly what his ceiling is going to be. I'm just looking at my notes, by the way. And it seems like, Houston has found the right guard. Like, it seems like they found a really good guard. And so I give this a very solid A+. I mean, this is probably going to be the only A+ on this list that you guys will see. So next, we move on to Stephon Castle. Now, as I've alluded to before, Stephon Castle, he did get injured in one of his Summer League games. But aside from that, from what I saw, he was pretty solid as a player. He ended up recording 22 points in his only game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. And he was able to knock down 2 3-pointers as well. Now, he didn't shoot the ball like during his season in UConn that much, or he didn't really shoot it that efficiently, I should say, or at a high volume. And that's something that he's going to have to work on in the NBA because, it's a 3-point shooting league. You got to be able to hit the 3 like that. But he has some really high basketball IQ. And he's definitely a really good facilitator from what I was able to see. And he is one of the best on-ball defenders in his entire draft class. Like, that's one of the things that's really going to be valuable for him. The fact that he can be a really good defender at the 1, because there aren't really that many competent guards, that are competent on both ends of the floor. You usually have a guard that's competent on offense as well as being competent on defense. And I have a feeling that, the fact that he's competent on both ends of the floor is going to make him a really good pick. And so I'm going to give this an A- because, like, again, pairing him with Victor, being that facilitator, that would mean his effort can be focused on both sides of the floor. Like, one of the more popular things that we see a lot of guards and a lot of defenders, one of the more popular things that they do is they end up sort of, they end up focusing more on offense. Like, for example, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is not as much of a defender as he used to be because more of his energy is now focused on offense as opposed to being focused on defense. Giving Stephon Castle the balance of both, being able to focus equally on both the offense and the defense, without needing to heavily rely on the other because he's not going to be the best option on the team. It's going to be Victor. that would really help his game. And paired up with Greg Popovich, again, Pop wasn't really a good coach back then. Well, not really back then. I meant like a few years, and like the most recent years with the Spurs. Now, that may be because, like, the team has been really, really atrocious, but I think that the defensive side with Stephon Castle is going to be incredibly valuable for the team. Like, I hope he succeeds. I hope he gets very good with Victor. Now, next is the number 5 pick in the draft, which was Ron Holland for the Detroit Pistons. Now, Holland was interesting, right? And in some of these games, I had to watch, like, the Pistons games. They were just pain. I just did not like watching the Pistons games at all. One of the things that I noted about him was that his motor was crazy. Like, he could run for days. And he's also a great cutter to the basket that I noticed. And he's cut to the rim numerous times. And he struggled with the three-point shot in the G League on his, on Ignite. And he finished 4 for 17 in Las Vegas from 3, but that will improve as time goes on. Like, that's one of these things about these guards. The three-point shooting usually improves, and someone is calling my phone. That is always fantastic. But aside from that, I mean, he fits Detroit rather well, and how should I say? Like, the path for him to be a star in the league it's there. Like, it's definitely there. He could definitely be an option for Detroit. But aside from that, I'm going to give it a B just because, I don't really know much. And with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and end off this segment because we are a little bit early or a little bit late. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next segment. And I'll go ahead and, I'll continue my list a little bit later because I didn't really expect this to be, I didn't expect this to be a really long time. I thought I was going to be talking about it for a little bit. But I will continue with the 4th segment right after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.